From calling out Nate Diaz back in 2020 as a rookie boxer to finally getting enough hype to get Diaz to agree 3 years later, the upcoming super fight between Nate and Paul is a true fantasy matchup. And I'm not exaggerating, it's pretty insane that this is happening. I mean, think about it. Jake Paul is the guy who used to be on the Disney Channel.
Heyo, I'm Jake Paul from Bizarre Park, and you're watching Disney Channel. Oh, no looker, first ever. Oh, nailed it.
And before 2020, he was known purely for being a problematic, goofy children's entertainer.
Whew. Shopping was so much fun, guys. I just got back. Got a ton of awesome stuff. I haven't gone shopping in like 5 months, so it was good to finally get some stuff, and I'm excited to wear some of my new outfits. So, you know, if I'm looking fresh, don't even mind it. Just be like, yo, what's up, Jake? That's dope.
A guy like that getting a fight with Nate Diaz? There's no way anyone would have believed you if you told them that this was going to happen 3 years down the line. It's truly shocking. And I've got to say, Jake's done a pretty impressive thing by simply landing this fight. If it helps, think of how crazy it would have been if this was a fight against Conor McGregor. I mean, Nate's on the same level of stardom in the MMA world as that guy, so Paul's pretty much fighting the biggest fish possible. But as you guys can imagine, a fight this huge doesn't just happen. Yep, a lot of work went into making this thing happen. I mean, Jake's been chipping away at this for years now. It was a pretty big deal when the problem child first burst onto the scene and started talking all that smack. It was honestly pretty infuriating, guys.
I want Nate Diaz, who's a he tried to come into my locker room, he tried to cause some and then he always leaves the arena. So Nate Diaz, stop being and fight me.
Just imagine a YouTuber seriously calling out guys from the UFC. It's no wonder that the MMA world was going crazy and the hate was unreal. But hey, it worked out how Jake wanted, because out of the sheer curiosity of seeing what would happen, people kept tuning into this man's fights, and he took every opportunity to call out 2 guys in particular. Can you guess who? Yep, the 2 big boys of the MMA world, Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a stint in the plans that Nate has. He wants to beat me, then go back to the UFC and fight Conor. I'm gonna knock him out, do what Conor couldn't do, and then Conor's gonna have no choice to make the biggest fight in combat sports, which would be me versus him, as long as his boss and his dad lets him do it.
After that Nate Robinson fight, Jake really went in on Nate. And even though his focus was originally on Conor, I think that's when he shifted gears and started going crazy for Nate. Now, Diaz was still on Dana's payroll at the time, but you guys know how it is. The Stockton G doesn't take shots from anyone. And his responses to this man really got the fans going. Yep, Nate Diaz did exactly what Jake wanted and talked trash in response to the guy.
I can just feel his lack of face-offs. Why?
And just like that, the seeds for this incredible matchup were sown. Jake kept winning, and Nate was pretty much just trapped in his UFC contract. But the problem child kept the younger Diaz brother's name in his mouth.
I'm just wondering if you think I could fight your brother, Nick. If he's anything like you, I think I'd beat his Not very respectful from
Brother, where you just gonna walk around the streets or some you know, my homeboy see you right now?
Yeah, I'm definitely pretty nervous right now.
Yeah, yes, that was
And things really started taking off after Jake fought Anderson Silva. After the fight, Nate decided he's had enough of this disrespect, and he took his entire crew and ended up clashing backstage with Paul. Apparently, he smacked Jake. Yep, that classic Stockton slap. Honestly, this fight was pretty unlikely before this happened. And then another incredible stroke of fate brought Nate into the perfect position to accept the fight. That's right, the spectacular end of his UFC career. The man fought after being forced to sit out for more than a year. And despite Dana trying to feed him to the wolves, he won his last fight against Tony Ferguson in a pretty amazing fashion.
See it, fire together. Oh, good work by Diaz to the body and then up top. It's tight, Joe. He's got a deep. He's got a deep. Diaz submits Tony Ferguson.
That's where Paul swooped in, and the two have been going back and forth online ever since. When Jake first made the offer of the fight, honestly, I didn't think Nate would take it. But the Stockton native has some things he needs to do, and you can bet he's ready to do whatever it takes to accomplish them. Yep, this man's looking to get paid. When asked about why he took the fight, Diaz responded by explaining that after Canelo, Jake was the biggest thing in boxing. Now, that's probably a pretty insane thing to say, but the numbers don't lie. Jake's making some crazy money, and the people want to watch his fights. Nate's been fighting at the UFC for ages, and this man deserves a huge payday.
Marcus is gonna go to sleep. He's out.
It is all over! Nate Diaz chokes out Marcus Davis!
Wow.
Outstanding.
And if he thinks fighting the problem child will get him there, well, I respect that. But that's not all he said. Nope, the 38-year-old had another reason for taking this fight as well. He wants the win over Jake to serve as the start of a new era of domination. And I'm not making this stuff up, guys. He clearly stated that after he beats Jake, he's going back to the UFC to win his belts. That's pretty exciting, but there's a big if there. Nate may be planning to go back to the UFC when he wins, but the reality is a little different. Yup, it's not when, but if Nate wins. And as much as I hate to admit it, it's pretty possible that the Stockton G gets stopped in this fight. And for those of you that I've just offended, take a second before you head to the comments and hear me out. Nate's 155, and this fight's happening at 180 pounds. It's going to be extremely difficult for being that much heavier. Plus, Jake's naturally much bigger than the guy, so he's already at a huge advantage. There's a reason weight classes exist, and at a certain point, it doesn't matter how good or how legendary you are. Size and age matter a lot. I mean, Jake literally beat Anderson Silva, one of the greatest fighters ever, and it was precisely because of his size and age. Besides, I'm not the only one who thinks the Diaz brother could lose. Bisping and Chael seem to be worried about the same thing. That's a debate for another day though. What's actually important right now is to think about what would actually happen if Jake did win. And let me tell you, Nate's career would be pretty much over. No disrespect to the guy. I mean, he's a true G and a legend of the sport, but losing to Jake will ruin him. Ex-champs like Tyron and Silva lost, and their reputations took a huge hit. I mean, Woodley's pretty much just a joke no one cares about anymore, even though he was one of the most dominant champions at welterweight. The fact is that if Nate loses, the fans will turn on him. They'd much rather just pretend that the guy was never good in the first place than have to accept that a YouTuber was able to beat him. But that's not all. If Nate loses, all of his future plans to continue fighting will end right there in the ring. I mean, after he left the UFC in the way that he did, there's no way Dana's letting him back in after he loses to a YouTuber. And if that happens, well, we can kiss our dreams of seeing this guy try to become a champion of the UFC goodbye. Yeah, there's a reason Conor never took the fight against Jake. Losing would just be too costly. And when I said the fans would turn on the Stockton G, I meant it. Hear me out. Imagine being the guy that everyone thought was the toughest man on the planet and promising to KO Jake and teach him a lesson about what it means to be a fighter, and then losing to him the same way Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley did. Yeah, just thinking about it is making me cringe. The craziest part of it all is that Nate's literally 38, and it'd make sense for the guy to lose, but you guys know how it is. The fans don't forgive, and neither does Dana. Now, as disastrous as it would be for the MMA fighter if he lost, what would a win against this man mean for Jake? Well, it would definitely back up his claim of being a real fighter. Yeah, I think we're all aware of how Paul just got wrecked by Tommy Fury, the guy that was an actual pro boxer and could match Jake's age and size. After that loss, his tough guy image is pretty damaged, and he even admitted that he wasn't a fighter. But a win against Nate would just start that trash talk all over again, and we'd be cursed to deal with this guy for another few years. Well, that was a breakdown of how Nate Diaz's career will be over if he loses to Jake.